Hello and welcome back to Among the Silence. I'm your host, Heather. If you've been following along with me this journey so far, please be sure to like and subscribe. Definitely will help me out. Today we are going to talk about a pretty rough case. We are going to talk about Jailyn and Crystal Candelario. I will put a trigger warning here at the beginning. This case is hard. This case is pretty rough. This is probably one of the hardest cases I think I'll cover. It is about extreme child neglect. So if that is not something that you are going to be comfortable with, I completely understand, and I will see you next week. For those who think you can stomach it, you can always fast forward through the parts that are hard. So we are going to talk about Crystal Candelario. There's not a whole lot known about Crystal's life, other than she moved to the States with her grandmother from Ecuador in 2016, and she was 25 at the time. A few years later, her mother and father followed to the States as well, and all of them shared a house together on West 49th in Cleveland, Ohio. During this time, Crystal met her first husband, whose name was unknown, and together they had a beautiful girl named Amaya. This relationship ultimately just didn't work out. After that relationship had ended, Crystal ended up meeting Henry Garcia online through social media, and they began their long-distance relationship in 2020. During a trip to Ecuador to meet him, because it's where he lived, they traveled to the Dominican Republic together. Now, on this trip, Crystal became pregnant with Jailyn. So, you're going to hear me say according to Crystal quite a few times during this episode. And I word it as such because some of the things Crystal says either don't make sense or is not a reliable source of information. Now, according to Crystal, this relationship turned physically violent while she was pregnant with Jailyn, and that is why they split up, and why he had nothing to do with baby Jailyn. He lives in Ecuador. I'm not sure how you are involved in a physically abusive relationship while pregnant, with several thousand miles between you. Mentally and emotionally, possibly. Not really sure where you're getting the physical abuse. If he was physically abusive while you were visiting him in Ecuador, you can leave and the abuse stops. Okay. However, Henry did state in a TikTok video that he never got to meet his daughter because of all the travel restrictions during this time, and the fact that Crystal was still living in the States. But not so sure how strong I'm going to take his word. Were there travel restrictions out the ass in 2020? Yes. Did those travel restrictions linger for a good hot while we all were all stuck in quarantine? Yes. Am I about to take either of theirs information regarding their relationship as fact? Nope. Because I don't believe Crystal. And the only thing I got from Henry was a TikTok video. So Who knows how that relationship actually was? It sounds like they had a long distance relationship, had a hookup, and got pregnant. But who knows how that relationship continued. Now, Crystal is a single mom to 2 girls. She got herself a job as a substitute teacher at a Cleveland elementary school called Citizens Academy Glenville. Never heard of a Citizens Academy, but their website says that it is a non-profit tuition-free elementary school in Cleveland that, according to their website, serves grades K through 8. Together, our citizen schools have developed a national reputation for their commitment to academic excellence and responsible citizenship. Our remarkable faculty, staff, board, parents, families, community members, and students work hard every day to make Citizens Academy Glenville among the best places in Cleveland to learn and grow as young citizens and students. This particular location she worked at was actually one of Cleveland's highest performing schools, and it seemed that her students really did like Crystal. So, you have this beautiful mom, these 2 beautiful girls. So how are we in a true crime case? Well, according to Crystal, her issues began at the beginning of 2023. She said that she had tried to kill herself in early 2023 because of all the emotional and mental problems that she was struggling with at the time. She was treated for depression in January and in February of 2023 after showing up to Hillcrest Hospital claiming to be completely numb on one side of her body. Initially, the doctors thought she could be having a stroke or suffering from extreme migraines, but then it was determined that it was a side effect triggered by anxiety and stress. They prescribed her multiple medications and then sent her on her way. She returned again in March because she was out of the medications that they had just prescribed for her, even though she should still have plenty of medication at the time. The doctors looked her over again and re-prescribed more medications, as she stated that the ones that she was given were not helping. She was given Depakote and Effexor. Now, both of these are moderately severely strong medications that are ones that you would be weaned on and weaned off, which means the supply you're given is going to last for a bit because you take a half a dose for a week and then you double it, and then you take a little bit or good half of the dose and then you double it. So you slowly increase the amount that's in your body. So doctors do tell you it's going to be a couple of weeks before you notice anything because the prescribed medication has to build up into your system. Now, Depakote is a medication that I've actually been given in the past. It is used to treat migraines, which, lucky me, I've get the lovely honor of having suffered. Still suffering, to be honest. Now, Depakote can also be used to help treat acute manic or mixed episodes associated with bipolar disorder with or without psychotic features. Now, I did not take Depakote for long. I did not like the side effects of Depakote, so I stopped taking them. I didn't like the increased trouble of sleeping when I already had trouble sleeping. And then I also had some of the blurry vision, which it became hard to tell what was my medication and what was my actual migraines. So, however, Depakote does have some pretty hefty side effects, which is another reason I stopped taking it. But Depakote can cause digestive issues such as such as nausea, diarrhea, belly pain, hair loss. It can cause double or blurry vision, memory loss issues, dizziness, drowsiness, insomnia, an increase or a decrease in your appetite, weight gain or weight loss. You can have balance issues or trouble walking, tremors, ringing in the ears. I do remember my hand shaking a lot more when I was on Depakote. Another reason I stopped taking it. More serious effects are a low platelet count, hypothermia, a high level of ammonia in your blood, depression, suicidal thoughts or behaviors, the risk of liver damage, pancreatitis, and if you were pregnant, fetal harm. Effexor is the other medication that she was prescribed. Now, this one is used to treat depression. I have been given depression medications in the past. I do not believe I was given Effexor. I do know that one of my best friends is taking it. And while it does help treat your depression, it can also be used to treat general anxiety disorder. So typically it's a medication that they're going to prescribe if you have depression and anxiety issues. Now, Effexor also has this lovely list of side effects that can cause some serious issues, which are blurred vision, eye pain, redness, seeing halos around the lights, cough, chest tightness, trouble breathing, seizures, unusual bleeding in your nose and gums, low sodium in your blood, which can cause headaches, confusion, memory problems, and a feeling of just unease. Its more severe symptoms are stiff muscles, high fever, sweating, fast or uneven heartbeats, tremors, and then the constant feeling that you're just going to pass out, jitters, and sleep problems. So she's on these two pretty hefty medications, both with a laundry list of side effects. And she's abusing them because you're running out of them way faster than you should. So during this time, she and her current boyfriend were talking about how she just needed to get away. She needed a vacation to help get through this stage of life. And they began planning for this trip March of 2023. And she told her boyfriend that her daughters would be with their grandparents while they were away on this trip. So here we are in June of 2023. Because, we're going to be real for a second. A lot of people in this world suffer from depression and anxiety, and none of them make the conscious decisions that Crystal did in June of 2023, which is when the vacation that her and her boyfriend began planning in March is set to take place during her break from school. So, Crystal's daughter, Amaya, who is 7 at this time, her older daughter, went with her parents to Ecuador to visit family and friends. Crystal told her parents that she wasn't going to do anything during her vacation time, that she was just going to stay home, hang out with Jailyn, who at this time is 16 months old. June 4th, 2023, Crystal left to go to Taylor, Michigan to visit a friend or boyfriend. It wasn't really specified who she visited during this time. But the thing is, Jailyn was not with Crystal when she went to Taylor, Michigan. A neighbor's Ring doorbell footage saw her returning from this mini trip to Michigan on June 6th around 7:41 a.m. She left Jailyn home alone for nearly 2 days while she went to Taylor, Michigan. 2 days home alone. That's not horrible, right? I mean, she's 16. Oh, no, wait. She's 16 months. So she shouldn't be left alone for more than like 5 minutes. Well, 16 months. Okay. You probably were alone on her own for a little longer, but 2 days while you're in a different state? Not so sure that's okay. But Jailyn seemed to be fine when she got home, because you can see her out and about in the yard around the property around 11:51 a.m. from a neighbor's doorbell camera. And again, you can see Crystal at 5:24 p.m. Only this time she was seen loading a suitcase into her car and leaving. Once again, there is no sign of Jailyn with Crystal. So where is Crystal going? Well, she was seen on a traffic camera at 8:04 p.m. leaving Ohio and once again heading to Michigan. She was in Detroit, Michigan from June 6th to June 8th with her boyfriend. And Jailyn is still in Cleveland, Ohio, in her home, alone. So, another 2 days away from Jailyn. She was fine the first time, so I guess she's thinking, another mini trip to Michigan, Jailyn will be fine. Well, this trip isn't a mini trip, because on June 8th, Crystal and her boyfriend took a Spirit Airlines flight to Puerto Rico. She left the fucking country with her 16-month-old daughter home alone. We're going to take a quick break from the insanity of this bitch leaving a baby home alone for not the first time that we know of, not the second time that we know of, but we discover a third time that Crystal has left Jailyn. A neighbor reportedly told Cleveland NBC that Crystal was known by neighbors as an absentee mother. In August of 2020, she had dropped Jailyn off with a neighbor, asking if they would watch her for the weekend. The neighbor agreed. However, that weekend became weeks. During this time, they were constantly trying to reach her to find out when she was coming to get Jailyn, letting them know Jailyn ran out of milk and that they needed money to get her more milk. Crystal wasn't answering her phone. She was making up excuses when she did as to why she wasn't coming back to get Jailyn yet. And eventually, 6 weeks later, a month and a half later, Crystal finally came home and picked up Jailyn. Now, here's where me and this neighbor differ. If someone asked me to watch their child for the weekend and did not come home, was unable to be reached every attempt that I made, did not leave me with enough food, and was making up bullshit excuses as to why they weren't coming to collect their child, I would have called CPS so fucking fast, I would have made their head spin, and they can explain to CPS where they were and why their child was no longer in my custody. But to each their own. I guess the neighbors knew the family and just bought her bullshit excuses. I would not have. I probably would have just not let them take Jailyn, to be honest. It's kidnapping. Okay. Yeah, I would have probably called CPS. The neighbor did also tell the station, after telling them of that 6-week break Crystal took from being a mom, that had they known what they knew now then, they would have never given Jailyn back and would have prayed that she had just left Jailyn with them. You know, hindsight's 2020. And unfortunately, a lot of us have those moments in time where we stop and think, if only, once we learned everything later. So we are here on June 8th, and Crystal is in Puerto Rico. She is having a blast, taking photos, posting all over her social media. There was one photo of her on the beach, and man, did this photo piss me off, because it's her standing with the ocean behind her, and the waves are rolling in, and she captioned it, "Time enjoyed is the true time lived." Bitch, your child is home alone, and at this point, it's been another 2 fucking days that you have left your child home alone, but time enjoyed is true time lived as you soak up the sun on the beach in Puerto Rico. Make it make sense. Now, beautiful baby Jailyn, there truly is not a whole lot of information on Jailyn. I mean, she had 16 months of life on this earth. And during that time, she was described as bright, happy, and a curious child. But at this point, she has been once again abandoned for days. So she's most likely terrified. After 2 days, she's got to be hungry and thirsty and confused at 16 months old. You know enough of what's going on around that you know that you shouldn't be alone for these extended periods of time. So she's got to be confused by what's going on. And she's probably sitting in a very dirty, wet diaper. So we don't have a whole lot of information of Crystal's escapades during her time in Puerto Rico, but we do, on the 9th, have a neighbor's Ring doorbell camera. It's 1:04 a.m. and in this video, I guess a branch or a dog or something triggered the doorbell, but it's just the neighbors pointing out onto the street, and you can clearly hear Jailyn crying and screaming in this footage. I'm not going to play it because it is heartbreaking to hear this. I will link it below. It starts 14 seconds in where you can hear her. I will let you know I almost started crying listening to this footage. It is gut-wrenching. And at this point, it makes me think not only did her mother fail her by like 1,000,000%, but everyone did. What kind of neighbor hears a child screaming and crying? And this isn't just wanting attention or, being a fussy child. This is a terrified cry. What person hearing this doesn't try to figure out what's wrong, doesn't call the cops, doesn't break a fucking window to the house that this is coming from? I would be breaking a window. I'd be like, you want to arrest me for busting my ass into this house? That's fine, go for it. At least she's fine. But they did nothing. No one made any calls to 911. I mean, I get it. It's 1:04 a.m., but this has been days. Days. There's no way that this is the first time you heard her. And the thing is, in all of the interviews, neighbors were like, I can't believe it happened. One even mentioned that Crystal wasn't Jailyn's primary caregiver, that her grandmother was the main person who watched Jailyn. They all knew this, were hearing a child screaming, and did fucking nothing. You all felt her just as badly as Crystal did, in my opinion. So we're 3 days now after Crystal left. And at least we know 3 days later, Jailyn's still alive while her mom's partying on the beach, where she stayed for another 2 days. On June 11th, 2023, Crystal finally returns to Michigan from her 4 days living it up on the beach in Puerto Rico. This is now 6 days that Jailyn has been home alone. So, mom's finally back in the country, so she's gotta be on her way to go see Jailyn now, right? No. Nope. Crystal left her boyfriend in Detroit, and she went and spent another 4 days in a different part of Michigan with a completely different guy, while her 16-month-old baby girl was still all alone at home. Finally, on Friday, June 16th, at 7:36 a.m., one of her neighbors' Ring doorbell camera sees Crystal returning home to the house that she shared with her family on West 97th. At 7:47 a.m., 11 minutes after she returned home, she makes a frantic 911 call. Now, we don't know if it was before she made this call or after she made this call, but at some point between 7:47 a.m. and police arriving on site, Crystal had changed Jailyn into clean clothes. So I'm going to link the 911 call below for those who want to listen to it. She's frantic, panicked. It truly is hard to understand her, but some of the things you could make out were, please, I need help. Please, please, please help. My daughter is dying. When first responders arrived on site, Jailyn was in a horrific state. Jailyn was found lying on a mattress inside her pack-and-play, covered in urine and feces, and she was clearly extremely dehydrated. Some of them said that the cakedness that was on her hands and her face, they thought at the time it was dirt, but they realized later that it was, in fact, her own feces. Crystal was interviewed this day at 9:59 a.m., just 2 hours after that insanely frantic 911 call. And in this body cam footage that we're getting the interview from, you see baby Jailyn laying on the floor underneath a bedsheet by Crystal's feet. Now, the interview is decently long, so I'll link it for those who want to hear it. And I try not to judge people's reactions in 911 calls and their reactions immediately following a tragic situation. I personally do not handle situations like this well. I really don't handle death well. I get mean and snappy, and I just want to be left the fuck alone. My brothers are the complete opposite, and they want to be helpful and to make sure everybody is okay. So I try not to judge people too much by 911 calls and actions immediately following. However, she was creepy calm in this interview, from how frantic and panicked she was during the 911 call, where you can barely understand her, to this interview. It's like a completely different person. In this interview, she said that on Monday and Tuesday, Jailyn wasn't feeling well, that she was getting sick and she was vomiting, but, she gave her some Tylenol to try and help. Now, I'm not a huge fan of medication, hence my constantly stopping medications I'm being prescribed. But I'm fairly positive you do not give Tylenol to help with vomiting. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm fairly positive that Tylenol is not given to help with vomiting. And if I'm not mistaken, Jailyn's not even old enough for Tylenol. But I might be off on that because I think they do have a kid version. But I'm pretty sure you're not even supposed to give someone under 2 Tylenol. But again, correct me if I'm wrong, because I could be wrong. I don't take medications often. Now, on Wednesday and Thursday, she said that Jailyn wasn't eating a lot. She was refusing to eat. She was refusing to drink. She thought because she was so sick on Monday and Tuesday that she was probably just not wanting to take it. And that she started thinking that, oh no, if Jailyn doesn't start eating, we're going to have to go to the hospital because she's getting so tiny. And then she started talking about Jailyn's sleep. She said Jailyn sleeps like 12 hours a day. She either sleeps from like 8 to 9 p.m. to like 9 to 10 a.m. And then she was saying last night on Thursday that she heard Jailyn screaming and crying in pain, and it was around like 7 or 8 o'clock at night, but Crystal was in the shower. So you're home, which we all know you're not, but you're saying you're home, and you're saying it's been Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 4 days that your child's not eaten or drinking enough anything. You hear her screaming and crying in pain, and you didn't take her to the motherfucking hospital? If you're gonna spin a bullshit story, at least make it make sense. Because, no parent will let their child go 4 days without eating and drinking. And if your child's been throwing up and getting dehydrated and you're seeing that she's getting smaller, you take them to the hospital to get them hooked up to a fucking IV to get that in her. But whatever. She said she woke up Friday morning and she went to Jailyn to wake her up like she normally does. She said she went, "Jaylee, wake up, wake up." And that Jailyn woke up and she was looking very dry and her face has been sunken in. Okay. Let's throw some facts into this bullshit spun story that you have. Her face isn't going to sink in overnight. And considering you are making this phone call at, 8 o'clock in the morning, just a little before, and you had just seen her 12 hours earlier, her face isn't going to sink in in 12 fucking hours. It's not gonna happen, okay? And she's not gonna be as dry as Jailyn was in 12 fucking hours. Make it make sense, honey. If you're gonna spin some bullshit, at least make the bullshit make sense. Now, thankfully, first responders were not buying her story in the slightest. Because, you know, make it make sense. So, Jailyn was taken from her home and taken to Cuyahoga County Medical Examiner. And this is where her autopsy was completed by forensic pathologist. Now, given that Crystal is a shit excuse for a mother, actually she's a shit excuse for a human being, leaving her child alone for 11 days, it really is no surprise that an arrest warrant was issued for Crystal. What is a surprise, which, I mean, given her past behavior, it's probably not that much of a surprise either. But on June 16th, instead of mourning the loss of your baby, Crystal went back to motherfucking Michigan to visit either a friend or a boyfriend. It never becomes clear who she actually visited. But you just lost your child. And instead of calling family and friends to let them know what happened, you went back to Michigan for a break. Bitch, please. On June 17th, 2023, the arrest warrant was issued for Crystal Candelario. She was charged on 5 counts. Count 1, aggravated murder, which it stated did purposely and with prior calculation and design cause the death of JC. Count 2, murder-UF 2903.02A did purposely cause the death of JC. Count 3-UF 2903.02B did cause death of JC as a approximate result of the offender committing or attempting to commit an offense of violence that is a felony of the first or second degree. Count 4, felonious assault -F2 did knowingly cause serious physical harm to JC. Count 5, endangering children -F2, a child 18 years or under 18 years of age or a child with mental or physical disability under 21 years of age, recklessly torture or cruelty abuse the child. Continue to add in the violation resulted in serious physical harm to JC. Crystal was arrested June 18th, 2023 by the Cleveland Police Department. Her bond hearing was set on June 19th for the following day of June 20th, 2023, at which time her bond was set for $1 million. At that time, her preliminary hearing was also set for June 28th of 2023. So, following her arrest, the homicide investigators, Gomez and Powell, who interviewed her back at her home, interviewed her again. And Crystal double fucking downed on her original story. I will post the link to this interview below as well. It starts about 44 minutes into the clip, and she was still standing beside her story of stating that she was there the whole time and that Jailyn just didn't want to eat, didn't want to drink, was refusing to do both, which is adding insult to injury. because you left your child to starve to death. And now you are blaming your child for starving to death. Make it make sense. So during this interview, you can tell that Gomez and Powell do not believe a single fucking word this woman is saying. Which at this point, they know she wasn't there. And they even ask her, when did you go to Michigan? And she said, I went on Monday. And they asked, what made you think it was a good idea to leave Jailyn when she was in that condition? But Crystal just kept trying to stick with her narrative that she was there and that this happened because Jailyn was sick and because Jailyn was refusing to eat and because Jailyn was refusing to drink. Jailyn was 16 months old. Jailyn is not responsible for ensuring that she is fed and has water. Assistant Cayuga County Prosecutor Anna Farglia said at sentencing that in response to what the first responders saw upon finding Jailyn was that Jailyn was found lying on a mattress covered in urine and feces. And she said, animals take care of their infants better. Animals take care of their infants better than an elementary school educator and mother to 2. Crystal's pretrial hearing took place on July 12th of 2023, at which time she was indicted by the grand jury on all 5 counts. Crystal did not return to court again until February 22nd, 2024, at which time she pled guilty. Only things were that easy in life. She did plead guilty to 2 lesser charges. She pled guilty to 1 count of aggravated murder and 1 count of endangering children. Her sentencing hearing was set for March 18th of 2024. Prosecutor Michael C. O'Malley said at the time of the plea, "This case is one of those truly unimaginable cases that will stick with me for many years to come. As prosecutors, it is our job to represent the victims. And today, we spoke on behalf of 16-month-old Jailyn, who is no longer with us due to the selfish decisions her mother made. This conviction today is the first step toward justice for Jailyn." So, mind you, this whole time, Crystal is in jail. So from June of 2023 to now March of 2024, Crystal has been sitting in jail. And what absolutely cracks me up about the ignorance of people, and sometimes I'm not even entirely sure it's just their ignorance, but their narcissism in thinking that whatever they say while they're in prison is never going to come back to haunt them. But what cracks me up is the entire time she's in prison, she's still talking to family and friends, like, cool, I get that. You know, you're in jail, your family's trying their best to help. But she was talking to friends and making plans for when she was released from prison. Some of the ones that really cracked me up is on November 26th of 2023, she was talking to one friend, and she was talking to this friend about that trip to Puerto Rico and how fun it was, and how they rented a truck instead of a car because it was more fun to drive the truck around, and just how absolutely amazing this trip to Puerto Rico was. And my most favorite one was a conversation she had had with her mom. And in the conversation, you know, they talked a lot about her case and her trial and God and forgiveness. But on January 6th of 2024, she was talking to her mom about this case and Jailyn. And she was saying how people go free in this country all of the time for intentionally killing someone. That what she did was an accident. She didn't do it intentionally. It wasn't like she picked up a gun or a bat. Jailyn wasn't bleeding. It's not like what happened to me days prior. Really, someone beat you with a bat or held a gun to you while you were on vacation? I must have missed that story and all of the recaps of how amazing that trip was. But, yeah, people who do it intentionally go free all the time. I didn't do it intentionally. It was an accident. Your child starved to death while you left her alone for 11 days. But I can see you're very hopeful about not being in prison. So during the sentencing hearing, prosecuting attorney Anna Farfila, so sorry if I say that wrong, was presenting all of the evidence that the state of Ohio had against Crystal, just as she would have had this case gone to trial. And for the defense was Derek Smith, who even later said in regards to this case, when asked why he took the case on and why he was defending Crystal, he said, "We got to do our job. At the end of the day, we have to defend the Constitution, defend our client the best we can." I will give it to him. I pity defense attorneys because I would absolutely hate to have someone who I know committed something this atrocious and then try to defend their actions. I would sit down and be like, bro, they did it, take them. Like, I have zero sympathy for crap like this. I have zero sympathy for anyone who hurts, injures, or kills a child. There's no reason for it, ever. So the sentencing trial started with Crystal's whereabouts in June, and investigators viewed more than 600 hours of doorbell and traffic cam videos, getting the full timeline of her movements, which included those 2 additional days Jailyn was left alone before she left for Puerto Rico. Sadly, this is also where we learn Jailyn's official cause of death. Now, this is going to be a trigger warning if it's rough. So if you want to skip ahead a couple seconds, I completely understand. Jailyn's autopsy was performed by Dr. Elizabeth Mooney. She made her statement in the courtroom. She began stating Jailyn arrived from her home, at which time she was clothed in non-soiled clothing. She said Jailyn weighed 13 pounds, which was a 7-pound weight loss from her previous checkup that was only 2 months before. And for those who don't know, an average weight of a normal, healthy child her age is just over 21.5 pounds. She said the eyes were sunken and she had temporal wasting and markedly decreased Turner, which the Turner is when you pinch the back of your hand. If you're dehydrated, your hand bounces right back, and it's like you never pinched and pulled your hand. If you're dehydrated, that pinch remains. The more dehydrated you are, the longer the pinch stays. Jailyn's remained pinched. She was showing extreme dehydration. She had a slight diaper rash. She had feces caked on her hands, her mouth, and her teeth. There were scratches on her face, which Mooney said she could not determine if they happened consciously or unconsciously. She was not able to determine that because these scratches appeared while Jailyn was dying. So she doesn't know if Jailyn was doing it intentionally or not. She said that Jailyn was already showing signs of decomposition. There was pale discoloration to her skin and her organs. Her kidneys and her thyroid gland showed severe distress, and her kidneys had failed. Her body had been going into ketosis, which ketosis, if not caught and treated, leads to coma and death. With that, and there being no underlying or natural causes that could have caused anything that she uncovered in Jailyn's autopsy, it led to her ruling the cause of death as homicide. Jailyn died of severe dehydration and starvation due to pediatric neglect, which pediatric neglect happens only when the caregiver fails to meet a child's basic needs adequately, like food, water, and shelter. In failure of the advanced decomposition of Jailyn, she said Jailyn had likely died 2 to 3 days prior to her body being discovered. Going on to state, in the absence of more advanced decompositional changes, I believe the pain and suffering she endured lasted not only hours, not days, but possibly even a week. This is a pain that comes from extreme thirst and hunger. It also stems from an inherent terror of isolation or an inherent lack of someone present to provide that. Mooney said, this feeling of abandonment for days on end, coupled with the pain of starvation and extreme thirst, is a type of suffering I don't think any of us could ever fully fathom. She described Jailyn's case as one of the most tragic and unfortunate cases I have had in my career this far. So before I start crying again, I'm going to get myself mad again, because she said Jailyn had died 2 to 3 days prior to Crystal finding her. Now, if you'll remember, after Crystal got back from Puerto Rico, she spent an additional 4 days in Michigan. If Crystal had just gone home, Jailyn would have still been alive. She would have been hungry, she would have been wet, she would have been dirty, she would have been thirsty, she would have needed to go to the hospital, but she would have still been alive. So, one of my absolute favorite things about the defense attorney, Derek Smith, was that he did say his client was guilty, which they are at the sentencing hearing because she pled guilty. But he said that she was guilty of narcissistic, selfish, abhorrent, absolutely the worst parenting imaginable. And that just warmed me up just a little bit. Now he did say this beautiful, beautiful line in tune to her defense, which is that she had stopped taking her serious medication for her depression and anxiety, which affected her mood and her judgment. Going through her mental health issues and hospital stays, and even the mention that she was clearly abusing these medications or having run out of them so quickly. He said, "You can't tell what a person is dealing with on the inside." She was hiding her depression from herself, from her parents. He said in Crystal's mind at the time, she thought if she was okay, then Jailyn was okay. Smith said, of course, that was not the case. But when she got home and we heard that 911 call, she didn't want this. So both of Crystal's parents gave statements to the court as well, pleading with the judge to go easy on Crystal because this happened because of her mental health issues. Crystal and her family's first language is not English, so they were all provided interpreters throughout this trial and throughout all of the hearings and cases. So her mother, Ketty Torres, made a statement through her interpreter, so it's not going to be completely coherent in places because it is through an interpreter. But she stated, "With my heart ripped apart in 1,000 pieces, speaking from love and maintained by God, I am here to tell the world that my daughter came from a home where there is relations of humanism, values, beliefs, emotions, warmth, where the most important thing was family. Crystal grew up and was educated in a healthy environment together with her parents, protected and loved. She studied and was educated in our native country of Ecuador. She chose the same profession as her father and her grandfather, teaching. Her years as an adult were marked by both physical and emotional problems that didn't always end up in the best way. Her emotional health was affected on more than one occasion, but between her work and her other responsibilities and her day-to-day life in the middle of all that, she never ended up appreciating the importance of continued treatment. Because of all of that, her depression, anxiety, conversion neurosis disorder, all ended up consuming her. And as a result of this, she suffered fainting spells and also loss of consciousness. In saying this, I don't want to justify or victimize anyone. I only want to give a glimpse of the interior person, the ego of someone who is seated here and being judged. Ladies and gentlemen, the mental health illness is not reflected in someone's face, and also not in a picture. It arises and remains in the soul. Only a timely and effective treatment by therapists and doctors can improve those conditions. My daughter did not have a good quality of life because she couldn't stop working. No one ever imagined this suffering would culminate in a tragedy. I want to say here before Jailyn, our angel, that your memory lives within us. We will always love you. I held you in my arms. Your grandparents will never forget you. Forgive me for being in the dark and the darkness that prevented me from seeing the light to see that I was going on with your mother. My beloved daughter, I love you so much. I am sorry for not having detected what you were going through. I could not see what was in your heart. I did not notice the chaos that you were going through. I lament my daughter. that I caused you this pain. Your Honor, I ask for mercy. I ask for mercy, for clemency and compassion for a human being that has been waged a very difficult battle in her life, and I beg that you not demonize her and point the finger at her. Who in this life has not sinned against God? Anyone who hasn't, let them raise their hand. But since we believe in a God of love and goodness and a God of forgiveness, He is here with us. My daughter, I love you. We are here always for you. I am going to wait the rest of my life for you. So I get that you are pleading for your daughter. But your daughter is the reason you lost your granddaughter. And what really bothers me is you're saying that her mental health was causing not only the issues that she was struggling with mentally, but you're saying that she had times of fainting spells and loss of consciousness, and yet you left your daughter and your granddaughter home alone while you went out of country. Huh? I'm sorry, but if I knew that my child was having physical symptoms of a mental illness, there is no way in hell I would leave them alone with a child. You're just as guilty as she is. The only difference is you're talking about how impeccable her upbringing was, but that because of her mental health issues, she had troubles in her adult life, and that's what caused Jailyn's death. Stop making excuses for her. She planned this trip in March. She left for this trip in June. For 11 days, her child was home alone, starving to death, while she partied it up on the fucking beach. And you're acting like it's just her mental health issues that caused this? No, you are as guilty as she is. Even with the neighbors saying you're the primary caregiver to Jailyn, your daughter has physical symptoms of loss of consciousness, and you left your grandchild alone with her. I wish they'd charged you too. Her father also gave a statement through it, and again, it was done with an interpreter, so there are a little nuances in the translations, but he had stated that he asked for compassion, understanding, empathy, and mercy for someone who is going through a stage of stress and mental and emotional illness and worries. Mental and emotional illness does not give warning, he said. Each person is a world unto herself, and in the inner world of my daughter was shaken without our having realized it. Depression and anxiety consumed her to the point of depriving her of good judgment and reason. Here's my daughter Crystal, who has a motive to go forward with your help. He said that motive is her 7-year-old daughter who hopes to see her mother and hug her soon. I beg for your help, forgiveness, and understanding, he continued. My beloved daughter, always remember that we will never forget Jailyn, my beloved granddaughter who I held in my arms. We miss you very much, very deeply. I carry her image always within my memory. Jailyn is the light of our life, he said, and he will continue to love his daughter until the end of my days. We will be here waiting for you. May God give you strength and courage every day of your life. Once again, I understand you are pleading for your child. I get that. Your child also cost you your grandchild, which you both seem to gloss over. And you're also not letting your child accept responsibility for your child's actions. You are kind of taking the blame on yourselves because you didn't see it. You didn't see this coming. She is a grown-ass woman who made her choice. Millions of people suffer from anxiety, depression, and they don't leave children alone for 11 days to starve. How much forgiveness do you expect? Crystal even spoke on her own behalf. She gave testimony and said that she took the blame for her actions. Okay, you didn't take the blame for your actions. You pleaded to lesser charges in hopes for a lesser sentence. It's not really taking the blame for your actions. She said, I was experiencing emotional stress, adding that she had been experiencing relationship issues with Jailyn's father. Jailyn's father is in Ecuador, several thousand miles away. Not entirely sure what relationship issues you're having trouble with when you said that his physical abuse caused you to end the relationship. And he clearly lives in a different country, so it's not like he's going to be able to take her from you. But okay. Whatever you say. He was abusive and not present in her life, but yet you were experiencing relationship issues with a man you weren't in a relationship with anymore. Crystal continued by insisting, my daughters have always been my everything, my whole world to me, and assured that Jailyn is always in my heart and is with me wherever I go. Bitch, if your child was with you wherever you go, she would have been with you in Puerto Rico. She would have been with you in Detroit. She would have been with you in motherfucking Michigan. She would not have been home alone, trapped in a pack and play for 11 fucking days to starve to death. Don't play, people. You didn't even have your other child with you. She was in Ecuador with your family. But they were your whole world. Make it make sense. Please, make it make sense. At some point, make this make sense. She was asked about her trip to Detroit and her trip to Puerto Rico. That resulted in her leaving Jailyn home alone. And Crystal said, it was a decision that I'd actually made many months before, back when she was leaving the hospitalization for her mental health. She said, I was in the hospital in January and February of 2023 because I had emotional and mental problems. On those two occasions, I wanted to make an attempt on my own life. For that reason, I was in the hospital without being able to walk for exactly almost 2 weeks. And I let that slide because, again, this is through an interpreter. But I kind of am sad that you failed that attempt. Sorry, not sorry. She said, in the month of March, my boyfriend, now ex-boyfriend, and I wanted to take a vacation. She stated during her telephone interview that they had planned in March this trip. However, in her statement, this woman make it make sense. In her statement, she said, actually, I left for the trip as a result of an impulse that I had. That I grabbed my 4 things and ran out of the house like someone was being chased. Where's the lie beep alarm that goes off when the bullshit meter goes off? Because you ran out of the house with your 4 things like someone was chasing you, but your neighbor's door cam footages saw you sauntering around the yard earlier that day and loading your suitcase very deliberately later in the day to leave. but it was an impulse and you ran out of the house like a bat out of hell. And I love how you left out that you had already gone to Michigan for 2 days. She said, it's not that at that moment I thought, I was going to Puerto Rico. I was going to be super comfortable. No, I never thought that. I simply wanted to get away from life of stress, depression, and anxiety. Crystal said, I didn't want to continue living. Then maybe you should have offed yourself instead of going to Puerto Rico. And again, sorry, not sorry. She said, I didn't want to continue living because I had a lot of problems in my life. During the trip, Crystal said she thought about her daughter and the fact that she was alone. The people who accompanied her on the trip could see that I was very distracted. I was very angry. They told me, Crystal, what's happening? You're not yourself. I never mentioned anything about my daughter. Crystal said her now ex-boyfriend had asked her about Jailyn one day during the trip. When he mentioned Jailyn to me, it's like when someone reminds you of someone who's not with you at the moment. But she said that she simply responded that her daughter was fine. She confessed that for a few seconds, she thought about calling a family member or a neighbor to check on her daughter's well-being, but I didn't do it. No, I never did it. And it was my mistake. No motherfucking shit, it was your mistake. Your daughter was still alive at this point. Your daughter was still alive when you finally fucking returned to this country. At any point in the 11 fucking days you were gone, you could have picked up a phone and we wouldn't have been here. But, I never did it. Send this pity party to someone who gives a fuck, because I sure as shit don't. Crystal said her parents never knew that she had gone on the trip and that she had abandoned her little girl to her fate. This I do believe. She said they never knew I had gone to Puerto Rico. They thought I was at home or that I was with Jailyn, maybe somewhere else in another city. Crystal's parents had been traveling with Amaya, her older daughter, in Ecuador at the time. She said, the only thing I told them was to go at ease. I'm going to stay here with Jailyn. So I do believe she told her parents a bullshit story and they bought her bullshit story that she was going to stay home with Jailyn even though she already had these tickets to go to Puerto Rico. However, it is still her parents' fault that they left their child, who they know had mental health issues that resulted in physical symptoms of her losing consciousness and blacking out, and left her alone with a baby. That is just as much your fucking fault as it is hers. Because had she lost consciousness or passed out and this had been the issues, then okay, yeah, it's a complete accident. But that's not what happened. She made a conscious decision that she had planned for March, April, May, for 4 months to leave her child home alone. I wish her attempts didn't fail. I'm sorry, not sorry. She said, upon her return and finding her daughter unresponsive, she called the police and said, that's when my world fell apart. Not because maybe I was thinking about going to prison. Why would that even cross your fucking mind? She said, that's the least important thing. Because one is an adult and one can accept one's mistakes. I was in despair. I felt she could be saved. Things didn't have to happen this way because my daughter was doing well. I always took care of her. You didn't take care of her. Your mom was her primary fucking caregiver. You left her alone for 11 fucking days after leaving her alone for 2 fucking days. So you're right. Things didn't have to happen this way. But because you are a selfish, narcissistic bitch, Jailyn suffered. And that suffering only ended with her death. There were two others who spoke at the sentencing, and those were TJ Powell and Teresa Gomez, the investigators from day one. Teresa Gomez gave her statement, and her and TJ both were clearly holding back tears while trying to give their statements over this case. Gomez added in addition to her statement that this tragedy should have never happened, and was stated that the scene they discovered made this a case that they will have branded in their minds and their hearts forever. And I can only imagine seeing a child in that condition and ever forgetting it. TJ Powell's statement was simple. It was a poem he wrote for Jailyn. He said, J is for the justice that will be received today. A is for the angel wings she earned on that dreadful day. I is for the incriminable repetition buildup of suspense, for a death that clearly makes no sense. L is for the lack of love while alone for 11 days. Y is for a young life that was taken away. N is for the new eternal life Jailyn gained on that day. No child should ever have to die this way. Now, I have issues with a lot of judges in cases that I've followed, and a lot of times I'm sitting there going, that is all they get for what they did. Thankfully, I did not have that thought at any point during Jailyn's case. Judge Brendan Sheehan gave absolutely zero fucks in regards to Crystal and her parents' pleas when he passed her sentence. He said, speaking very sternly, that Crystal left her child trapped in a tiny prison for days while she was out having a good time. He said the bond between a mother and a child is one of the most purest and most sacred bonds. It is a relationship built on love, trust, and unwavering protection. He said, you committed the ultimate act of betrayal. That little baby persevered, waiting for someone to save her. And you could have done that with a simple phone call. Instead, I see photos of you on a beach while your child was eating her own feces in an attempt to survive. Crystal was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. And after he passed this sentence, he added, just as you didn't let Jailyn out of her confinement until she died, so too you should spend the rest of your life in a cell without freedom. The only difference is that prison will at least feed you. Now, like most narcissistic monsters who do not think they did a damn thing wrong, Crystal does plan on appealing her sentence. She pled guilty because pleading guilty put 4 different options on the table, which Judge Sheen could have any of the 4 he could have chosen to sentence her with. One was a possibility of parole after 20 years. the other was after 25 years, and the one was after 30 years. All of these were with the possibility of parole. However, the maximum sentence that he was authorized and that her plea allowed was life in prison without the possibility of parole. She is, in my opinion, going to appeal it just in the attempt to get the possibility of parole. I don't see it happening. I checked before I started recording today to see if there was any updates on her appeal. I didn't find anything. If I ever do notice something, I will make sure to do an update about it. But I love that judge. That was the best sentencing that I've ever heard. And I absolutely love his commentary to his sentence. So that is all I have for you guys today. I know it was a bit of a rough one. It always is when it involves kids. And this one was just devastating. I will be sure to link all of the interviews in the description below for those who want to listen to the absolute babbling of this narcissistic bitch and her doubling down on her story. Just really, they know, come on, stop being stupid. But that's it for tonight. I'm going to go cuddle my fur babies and try to decompress from reliving Jailyn's case again with you guys. But until next week, stay safe, and I will see you guys soon. Bye.